Hello, class. Welcome to week 10. This week, Sammy and I have prepared a case study on COVID-19 and its impact on Chicago's public transportation system. Let's get into it. The COVID-19 pandemic significantly affected Chicago's public transportation system. To give a brief overview, there was a drastic decrease in ridership, significant revenue losses, issues with operational capacity, and of course, long-term implications, which brought the need for a strategic response, which is what Sammy and I will be addressing today. COVID-19 also created numerous operational challenges. To protect both passengers and employees, the Chicago Transit Authority, otherwise known as the CTA, had to implement enhanced cleaning protocols, provide personal protective equipment, and enforce social distancing measures on buses and trains. These measures increased operational costs at a time when revenues were already declining. Moreover, there were periods when the CTA experienced staffing shortages due to the employees falling ill or quarantining, which further complicated the service delivery. The significant drop in ridership led to substantial revenue losses for the CTA. Farebox revenue, which constitutes a large portion of the CTA's operating budget, was severely impacted. The CTA reported a budget shortfall of approximately $1.6 billion in 2020 due to the decreased fare collection and increased sales tax revenues. These financial strains forced the CTA to rely heavily on federal relief funds to maintain operations. And of course, one of the most immediate and visible impacts of the pandemic was the dramatic decline in ridership. As stay-at-home orders were implemented and many businesses shifted to remote work, the number of people using public transportation plummeted. According to the CTA, ridership fell by over 70% at the height of the pandemic. This decrease in passengers not only reduced fare revenue, but also challenged the system's financial sustainability. The long-term impacts of the pandemic on Chicago's public transportation system are still unfolding. One concern is the potential for a permanent shift in commuting patterns, with more people continuing to work from home or otherwise opting for alternative modes of transportation like cycling or driving. This shift could result in sustained lower ridership levels, which could challenge the CTA's financial model and necessitate a reevaluation of service levels and funding mechanisms. Addressing these issues requires not only short-term financial support, but also long-term strategic planning. Just for context, I currently work at a company with headquarters located in Chicago. We're just outside in one of the suburbs, and the company recently switched to a hybrid model after the pandemic and following the trends, and now there's a large portion of the company's employees that have shifted their commuting style. As Chicago emerges from the COVID-19 pandemic, the future of its public transportation system is poised for significant transformation. The pandemic has underscored the need for resilience and adaptability in urban transit, prompting the Chicago Transit Authority and other stakeholders to reevaluate and innovate. Key areas of focus include technological advancements, enhanced public health measures, and sustainable practices to meet evolving commuter needs and environmental goals. Sustainability is a key priority in the future of Chicago's transportation system. The CTA is committed to reducing its carbon footprint by transitioning to a zero-emission bus fleet. This initiative includes the deployment of electric buses and the installation of charging infrastructure across the city. Additionally, investments in bike-sharing programs and pedestrian-friendly infrastructure will promote alternative, eco-friendly modes of transportation. The shift towards remote work and changing commuting patterns necessitate adaptive service models. The CTA is considering flexible scheduling and on-demand transit services to better align with the new normal of hybrid work environments. These adjustments aim to optimize resource allocation and meet the diverse needs of Chicagoans. These efforts will not only meet the immediate challenges posed by the pandemic, but also position Chicago's transportation system for long-term success. So I will now hand it over to Sammy to show you what this looks like.
Despite the many negative impacts that COVID has had on Chicago's transportation, the pandemic also helped to shine a light on issues that have always existed within the transit system. In an effort to return ridership to pre-pandemic levels, policymakers and city officials have begun to address long-standing issues. A direct result of COVID and an example of the city looking ahead is the Meeting the Moment Action Plan released in 2022. This action plan is broken down into 5 pillars of improvement: reliability, safety, customer experience, digital tools, and employee investment. Since 2022, Chicago has already seen improvements directly resulting from the Meeting the Moment Action Plan. During the pandemic, the Chicago Transportation Authority cut transportation fares significantly. Upon this reduction, the CTA saw an immediate increase in ridership. As this temporary fare reduction ended, Metra announced its plans to revise its permanent fare structure. This new structure will increase from the COVID reductions, but will permanently keep Metra fares lower than pre-pandemic levels. While not yet confirmed, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning has been pushing to convert the Metra to a regional rail system. A regional rail means increasing service during the day and on weekends. This would benefit customers with increased service and also benefit the CTA by decreasing dependence on the reduced number of rush hour commuters. CTA has been putting in a lot of work to increase the reliability and usage of their digital tools. They are pushing for all users to utilize their Ventra app for ticket purchasing and live updates. They have also increased digital signage and live updates at stations, platforms, and bus stops. A few more ridership experience improvements already underway include accessibility initiatives, making all train stations 100% accessible by 2038, and adding braille and high contrast signage at bus stations to assist visually impaired riders. A final effort to increase ridership is simply cleaning up stations. This includes power washing and scrubbing each station every month that weather allows, as well as the Refresh and Renew program, which updates lighting, paint, plumbing, and signage, as well as any other repairs at specified stations. Another pillar of the post-pandemic action plan is addressing safety. During COVID, safety concerns skyrocketed, with commuters voicing legitimate concerns around the criminal activity surrounding public transportation. While there is still a long way to go, Chicago and the Chicago Transportation Authority made significant safety strides in the year following the release of the post-COVID action plan. First and foremost, $2 million were invested in social service engagement. These programs are used to assist with those looking for shelter in the transportation system and those dealing with mental health or substance abuse. Additionally, 50 canine units were also deployed to assist Chicago PD in monitoring Metra stations. Lastly, station cameras were improved and replaced so that all cameras provide real-time full station coverage to the station booths. As a result, between July 2022 and July 2023, overall transit crime and violent crime both dropped by 21%. One last benefit that can be directly attributed to pandemic-related changes are environmental initiatives, particularly an increased interest in bettering biking infrastructure. COVID-based health concerns surrounding taking trains and buses turned a lot of commuters towards cycling. This increase in cycling increased a demand for better infrastructure. In 2022, Chicago began a 4-year, 5,000 bike distribution to low-income residents struggling with mobility hardships. And in 2023, the city released the Chicago Cycling Strategy, a plan for connecting all of the piecemealed biking routes throughout the city. In a circular fashion, this renewed city interest and initiative in improving biking infrastructure has increased cycling rates even more. The map on the right shows the increase in cycling by neighborhoods between 2020 and 2024. Despite still having inadequate infrastructure, Chicago has had the highest cycling growth rate out of all U.S. cities in the last few years. Additionally, energy-efficient rail cars and electric buses have begun to roll out as a result of the post-pandemic action plan. Please choose one of the following questions to respond to in this week's discussion. Number 1, How can Chicago draw from successful global examples, such as Singapore's advanced transit technologies or Copenhagen's extensive cycling infrastructure, to further improve post-COVID innovations to its public transportation system? And number 2, based on the information provided in this presentation, do you think Chicago would have initiated many of these transportation changes without the decreased ridership that resulted from COVID-19? How might innovation and growth in this city have looked different?